Sources of inspiration can be found all around us, whether it's in nature, architecture, or even day-to-day life. But in one man's case, William Edmondson found his inspiration in what he believed were words from God. Therefore, I will argue that through his art, Edmondson expressed his spirituality and interaction with the metaphysical realm of dreams and visions. William Edmondson was born in Davidson County during the Reconstruction era in the 1870s. Edmondson was one of 6 children born to parents that were once enslaved. Being born in the South, Edmondson faced the hardships of discrimination, prejudice, and limited opportunities for employment because of his color. While most of his siblings left the South in search of jobs, Edmondson stayed in Tennessee and worked handyman jobs up until his 50s. After the hospital he was working at closed, Edmondson decided that he was going to carve stone. With handmade tools, no academic training, and limited resources, Edmondson's family and friends believed he was joking and questioned him when he told them about his decision. Edmondson would answer everyone who questioned him the same. "I had a vision," he would say. He would then explain that he first received a vision as a young boy while working in the cornfields. Edmondson explained that within this vision, he saw the corners of the world and then a great flood come and cover its entirety. It can be inferred that Edmondson's vision directly relates to the biblical story of Noah and the ark, although Edmondson claimed he had never read a Bible. According to Edmund Fuller, author of Visions in Stone, Edmondson claimed that his encounters with God continued. Edmondson explained that one night God had woken him from his sleep by speaking to him. Edmondson explained that he talked so loud he woke me up. He told me he had something for me. Edmondson continued to explain that one day while working outside with some tools, God came to him again and told him to carve tombstones and later sculpt figures. Without hesitation, Edmondson began to sculpt and became fully immersed into his new love for God. Within his book, Visions in Stone, Edmund Fuller also reports that residents within Edmondson's local community were friends with a photographer for Harper's Bazaar in New York. The name of this photographer was Louis Dalwolf. While visiting in Tennessee, Dalwolf noticed Edmondson's yard decorated with what he called miracles and photographed his sculptures. After returning to New York, Dalwolf contacted the Museum of Modern Art and shared her portfolio of Edmondson's work. After being discovered, in 1937, William Edmondson became the first African-American artist to have a one-person exhibit in the Museum of Modern Art. Unaware of his talent, William Edmondson became one of the most well-known self-taught African-American artists. He claimed, "I is just doing the Lord's work. I didn't know I was an artist till them folks come and told me I was." When Edmondson first began to sculpt, he worked specifically with limestone because it was inexpensive and easily attainable. Edmondson started creating tombstones in large blocks that were sold and used within his local community. Later, Edmondson began to sculpt three-dimensional objects that, according to Fuller, did not incorporate fine detail, but were sculpted just enough to strengthen his creation of oneness and a wholeness. The fact that Edmondson never incorporated much detail into his sculptures is a defining stylistic characteristic of his work, characterized as abstract. This abstractness is comparable to the work of Constantine Brancusi. Brancusi was a Roman sculptor and painter that also created abstract sculptures. Much of his work is similar to Edmondson's because Brancusi created sculptures that only conveyed the true essence of the subject. According to Rachel Gershman, art historian, Brancusi's main objective while sculpting was to create a sense of realism and the subject in its true nature. Gershman explains that Brancusi and Edmondson accomplished this by concentrating highly on simplified forms free from ornamentation. Even though Brancusi was a trained artist, he used a direct carving technique, which is similar to the way Edmondson naturally sculpted, that can be characterized or described as primitive. It is important to note that it is evident that through this abstractness, Edmondson expressed his spirituality and experiences with the metaphysical realm through his art. Jane Livingston, author of Black Folk Art in America, also claims that much of Edmondson's work depicts biblical narratives. To back her claim, Livingston specifically refers to Edmondson's sculpture Noah's Ark, in order to directly relate the work to the biblical story itself. It is also important to note that works like Adam and Eve, Mary and Martha also depict biblical characters and stories. It is also important to note that Edmondson is not alone in his contact with the metaphysical realm. According to Sharon Patton, author of Spiritual Visions and Allegory, Minnie Evans and Sister Gertrude Morgan were also inspired by visions that came to them from God. Like Edmondson, Minnie Evans and Sister Gertrude Morgan also depicted biblical stories and narratives in their artwork. Therefore, it is evident that Edmondson was able to accomplish his translation of divine inspiration through his sculptures. His relationship, experiences, and interactions with the metaphysical realm were clearly expressed throughout his artwork. William Edmondson died in 1951, but his sculptures and reputation as one of the greatest self-taught African American artists will live forever.